Imagine someone speaks to you in Japanese. The grammar is simple, the words are easy, you understand every single one. And yet, you have the strange feeling that you've missed the most important part. Because in Japanese, half of what someone means to you may never become a word at all. It lives in the air around the sentence, and somehow you are supposed to hear it. If you've ever studied Japanese, you may know this feeling. You learn the grammar, you memorize the vocabulary, you build a correct sentence, you say it, and something is still slightly off. The other person smiles, a little puzzled. You were right, and yet you weren't quite right. Many adult learners quietly blame themselves for this. Maybe I need more vocabulary. Maybe more grammar. But often, this is not the problem at all. Konnichiwa, I'm Asuka. Today I want to explore one of the most beautiful and most invisible parts of the Japanese language, the meaning that lives in what is not said. In Japanese, there's an everyday phrase for this kind of listening. 空気を読む. Literally, to read the air. Today, let's learn to read the air together. For many years, I taught Japanese to adults in the UK, thoughtful, curious people, often picking up the language later in life. And I noticed something. The wall they hit was almost never vocabulary. It was this. The language kept pointing at things it never said out loud. Once they could see that, everything started to open up. So here's the idea I'd love to leave you with today. In Japanese, meaning is not stored only inside words. It's created between people, in the space the Japanese sometimes called ma, the meaningful gap between things. Once you can see that space, the way you learn the language changes too. If this way of looking at language speaks to you, you might enjoy subscribing. This channel is a slow, gentle exploration of exactly this kind of thing. Let's begin with 3 small windows into the unsaid. The first one is a sentence that never finishes. Section 1. The sentence that doesn't finish. Here's the first surprise. In Japanese, it is completely normal and often polite to leave a sentence unfinished on purpose. In English, we are taught the opposite. Finish your thought. Say what you mean. A trailing sentence can feel unsure, even evasive. But in Japanese, the unfinished sentence is not a mistake. Sometimes it's the most graceful thing you can say. There's been a name for this, iisashi. Speech that is started and then gently left open. Why would a language build this in? Think about in this way. In a culture that puts relationship at the center, saying something all the way to the end can land like a small push. It closes the door. It decides things for the other person. Leaving the sentence open does the opposite. It hands the rest to them. It says, you already understand. I don't need to spell it out, and I trust you to fill in the rest. Let me give you the classic example. A friend invites you somewhere, and you can't go. In English, you might say, sorry, I can't make it today. I've got other plans. You name the refusal, and then you explain it. In Japanese, You can simply say 今日はちょっと Today is a little and then nothing. The sentence is just stops. Today is a little what? You never say. You don't have to. Your friends hear the soft landing and understands completely. Today won't work. No one is hurt. Nothing is forced into words. In English, if you try to turn down an invitation with just today is a little, it wouldn't really count as an answer. It sounds like you forgot the end of your sentence. But in Japanese, 今日はちょっと is a complete answer. The sentence stops on purpose. And that stopping, that little open space, is a kindness. You are not refusing in their faith. You are letting them understand gently on their own. So the unfinished sentence isn't vague. It's finished, just not with words. It's completed by the other person's understanding. The meaning lives in the space where the sentence stopped. And notice, you cannot really get this from a vocabulary list. You feel it in a real moment with a real person. Section 2. The missing I. Second window. In Japanese, the subject of the sentence, the I, the you, the he or she, very often simply disappears. And yet, everyone still knows exactly who is being talked about. In English, the subject sits right at the front of almost every sentence. I think, you said, she went. English likes to make the actor clear. That's a beautiful, precise design. It separates who did what. Japanese makes a different choice. It often lets the subject rest in the situation, in the relationship between the people speaking, rather than in the sentence itself. Neither way is better. There's two different architectures for the same human moment. One places the self in the words, the other places it in the room. For example, picture a situation where a colleague asks, "Are you going to the meeting?" In English, you'd simply answer, "Yes, I'm going." But what happens in Japanese? The same exchange is just 会議に行きますか? Literally, going to the meeting? And はい、行きます. Yes, going. There's no I. There's no you. In Japanese, neither person appears in the sentence at all. And yet nobody is confused for even a second. Both speakers already know who's who. And here's the elegant part. The very same words in a different situation would point to different people. The sentence doesn't carry the answer by itself. The situation carries it. So it's not that the subject is missing. It's that the subject has dissolved into the situation. Which means if you only stare at the sentence, you can't solve it. You have to read the room it's spoken in. Again, the meaning is in the air around the words. Section 3. The meaning of silence. Third window, and maybe the deepest one. In Japanese, silence itself can be a kind of speech. There's a word I find very beautiful, ma. It means the gap, the interval, the space between things, the pause between two notes in music. the empty space in a room, the breath between two lines of a conversation. In Japanese arts, such as no theater or sado tea ceremony, ma is not nothing. It's a space that carries something. It has weight. It has meaning. Now compare how the two languages tend to fill silence. In English conversation, a silence can feel like a gap that needs filling, a little uncomfortable. Something has gone wrong. In Japanese, a silence is often the opposite. It can mean someone is thinking, showing respect, letting a feeling settle. The silence is doing work. Picture a simple moment. You ask someone a real question and they don't answer right away. A few seconds of silence. An English speaker might feel the urge to jump in, to fill that gap, to rephrase, to rescue the conversation. But a Japanese speaker may read those same few seconds completely differently. They are taking my question seriously. They are really thinking. The silence isn't empty. It's full. It says, this matters to me. So if you feel every pause, you might actually be talking over the other person's meaning, stepping on their ma without realizing it. In English, silence in a conversation often feels like a gap you need to fill. In Japanese, silence can be part of what's being said. There's even a word ma for the meaningful space between things. A pause after your question doesn't mean something wrong. It can mean I'm taking you seriously. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is let the silence finish the sentence. So meaning doesn't live only inside the words. It lives in the ma, the space between them, which means reading the air isn't a poetic metaphor. It's a real, practical skill, learning to listen to the spaces, not just the sounds. Let's bring our three windows together. The unfinished sentence, the missing I, the meaning of silence. They're all the same quiet truth, seen from three sides. In Japanese, meaning is not only stored in words, it is created between people, in the relationship, in the situation, in the air. And this is why learning Japanese can be so much more than learning vocabulary and grammar. You are not just collecting new words or learning how sentences are built. When you look at Japanese only at the level of words and sentences, you are seeing just half of it, the half that's carried in words. But as we've seen today, Japanese also holds meaning that's never spoken at all. Meaning that lives in the relationship between people. This half of the language, the part that lives in relationship, is very hard to pick up from an app on your own or from lessons that focus only on grammar rules. Why? Because that's exactly where the relationship and the context fall away. You have to practice it with people in real conversation. That's exactly why I created Communicative Japanese, a course where you learn inside real conversations and real situations, so that even as a beginner, you are practicing the Japanese that actually lives between people, not just sentences on a page. It's designed to be sustainable for busy adults, with experienced teachers and very small classes, so you can grow your communication gently and with confidence. If you'd like to go further, I've created a free guide for you. It's called the Japanese Learning Guide for Mature Adults. It's made for adults who want to feel the Japanese spirit through the language, not just memorize phrases. You can download it for free using the link in the description below. So if you take one thing from today, let it be this. Half of the meaning in Japanese is not in the words at all. It lives in the space between people, in the ma, and learning to hear that space. That is what it really means to read the air. 空気を読む. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one. さようなら.